Iyslander and Lexi were both staple heroes of the 2023 CC metagame, and if you played a lot during that time, then you probably felt oppressed by one of those heroes and or both of them in one way or another. The thing about LL is I can see them both transitioning very well and doing well at a high level there. Iyslander gives you the ability to play mind games with your opponent while also taxing them and dealing arcane damage to them. Being able to disrupt your opponent's hand and dealing arcane damage to them at the same time is a dangerous combo, and Iyslander can close games out fast. Now, Lexi does have a little bit of disruption in the form of Winter's Bite and Icequake, but Lexi's really more about raw damage. Let's throw cards like Drill Shot, Heat Seeker, Infecting Shot to push damage and set up 6-card hands so that our Rain Razors and 3 of a kind can go for 30 to 35 points and putting your opponent on the back foot as early as turn 2 or 3. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoy the match. Iyslander versus Lexi. This is a little bit of a throwback. I haven't played this one since Nationals of 2023, I guess, when we were all in Vegas, but I remember it being a pretty fun matchup back when it was in CC. So since our opponent has only offered AB2, we're just going to go ahead and throw an Aether Icevein here to push a point of damage and then get a couple of cards out of their hand. And then we also get to throw the Waning Moon here. They can decide if they want to AB or if they'd like to load, however they'd like to play this turn out. Now, it does pan out for them that they get to load in an arrow and only take 1, which I think is a pretty positive exchange because their hand was fine, but it wasn't great. We do get to Arsenal Sink Below, which is really nice. After we Arsenal the Sink Below, we rip into a pretty decent hand here, kind of deciding on what they want to do with it at this point. Looking at this hand, I would say the best thing we can do is probably to play the Sink Below and block with it, and then to play the Aether Icevein on our turn. We make the choice to play the Sink Below, which I think that's a good choice. I put the Fighting Spirit on the bottom, which was interesting because we could have just blocked with it. Probably would have been better off to just keep the card and block with it there. I think right now you're seeing a lot of pause because I'm deciding if I want to play Blizzard or not. Playing Blizzard does kind of tax our opponent and force them to make a decision here. Now they had a red, so they are going to have to pitch their last card if they want to throw the Bolton Shot at us. I guess they decided not to. They'd rather have a 6-card hand, which honestly makes a lot of sense. Now, the thing that's tough about this decision is that now we just have to play the Insidious Chill, because putting the Insidious Chill in Arsenal is a very bad choice. I am setting myself up to take a lot of potential damage here, depending on what their hand looks like. So they decide to trench their Searing Shot away, which I'm going to be honest, I don't really know that I agree with. Looking at it, I think that just playing the Searing Shot and using snaps would have been a pretty good play here. I guess we'll have to see what the rest of their hand looks like and how it plays out here. An ideal play for me would be to block with the Frosting and then play the yellow Aether Icevein from Arsenal fusing with Channel Lake on my turn. But I think to do that, since they've had 3 of a kind, we're definitely going to have to take some damage here. So we're going to be trying to soak as much as we can while we're just kind of blocking here, hoping that we can stay alive for another day. So this is for 5 with no on-hit effect. I do just decide to go down to 31 because I think ultimately that's the best play. If there's no on-hit effects, unless we just have cards we want to block with, I'm probably not going to block very often. This one is for 5 go again. We cannot cover this up and play the Aether Icevein. So I do decide to give the Brain Freeze instead of the Frosting, which is interesting to see because now that I'm watching back this game, I'm curious to see how it plays out differently. They activate Quiver, and then they do hit a Bolton Shot. Nothing to write home about, but a Bolton Shot's fine. So we're going to fall down to 26, and then we're going to fall down to 25 when we play the Aether Icevein. Now, the good news is that the Aether Icevein takes quite a bit of tempo here because we get an Insidious Chill trigger and we get an Aether Icevein trigger. Now, since they have AB2, this is pitch 2 blues and they're still pretty good here as far as keeping cards in their hand. Really just depends on if they have 2 blues. Lexi is a pretty low count blue deck, so they do decide to discard a Heat Seeker. They take 4 and then discard a Drill Shot. So we managed to deal 4 and take 2 cards out of their hand. And to be honest, I think that's a massive tempo win. We're still down 10 and we're still trying to set it up, but we do have the Channel Lake Frigid that we're going to Arsenal here. And again, I think this hand's really solid. We get to pitch the Polar Blast Yeah, I'm thinking pitch the Polar Blast here to play Channel Lake Frigid. Okay, I made the decision of pitching the Emeritus Scolding there. I guess it's fine one way or another. I know that they only have the one resource floating, so I'm just going to throw the Waning Moon at them. They'll probably take 3 at the hopes that they rip into a pretty solid hand here. Channel Lake Frigid means that their next thing they do is going to cost 2 extra, which is very good for us. Having the red Aether Icevein in hand to arsenal the Hypothermia is a huge W for us. Now, again, that does mean that we are stuck taking some damage. We have already put our Disruption into play, and if we want to play out our Aether Icevein, we're kind of just stuck sitting here taking some points of damage. Now, this is just going to be 4, and they're just going to arsenal a card and pass here. Channel Lake Frigid probably saved us a decent number of points right there, so being able to throw red Aether Icevein here and then arsenal Hypothermia is a massive W. The the Hypothermia here is like a restricted card in LL, but it's very powerful and can really shut down Lexi's go again turns. Just took every card out of their hand here. Arsenal the Hypothermia. They flip up. They choose not to activate Lexi. And then we can actually play the Cold Snap here from our hand, and we can actually keep the Channel Lake Frigid in play because of that. So we can pitch one of our ice cards to play Cold Snap. We don't draw a card, but we do force them to make a decision. And then from here, I get to play Waning Moon, activate Waning Moon, and then I get to throw Wounded Bull for 8. So we force them to make a decision on if they want their arsenal to be frozen, which, since they have Trench, it could be okay, all things considered, but it's still a decision they have to make. You can see our opponent says that they're thinking, they're trying to decide what they want to do. I think this is a good time to actually stop and think about it. They pitched the Thunderquake. Now, since they have AB2, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I should have definitely activated Waning Moon before I threw the Wounded Bull. That was a mistake. It would have been better to throw the Waning Moon at them. I throw it anyway, knowing they're just going to block with the 2 resources they have, but it's still correct to do that and make them remember it there. And we keep our Channel Lake Frigid in play for another turn, which is a massive W. They give us a Frostbite right here, flipping up Lexi. It does cost them 1. I can't remember if I played the Hypothermia here. Looking at this hand, my first reaction says don't play the Hypothermia right here, that we can try to wait and set it up on another turn. Taking the Frostbite is fine, because on our turn, we can play Winter's Bite and then potentially play another Cold Snap. We have a couple of options here of things we can play. They play Codex of Inertia, and then they pass, because they can't play anything with a channel like this. Now, the Inertia does make it interesting. Unfortunately, I do lose the Hypothermia if I play it right now during their turn. I think I lose it at the beginning of my instep or at the beginning of my turn or something like that. So we can play Winter's Bite, pitching an Emeritus Scolding here. I guess part of me is thinking maybe I should play the Hypothermia to just get value here. I can play the Winter's Bite regardless, though. I should play Winter's Bite right here and force them to decide to give me a card. I can pitch the Emeritus Scolding to play the Winter's Bite here. Doesn't really matter which card I pitch, honestly, when we're thinking about it. And then we're going to see how they respond to the Winter's Bite. We're going to target them. There's a good chance that they could just discard a red card, and that would be a very solid play for us. Okay, so we're going to activate Waning Moon because we should do that first. That should definitely be the thing that we do first. They choose to take 2 to play around the Coronet Peak, which I think is a good decision. And then I decided to just play Hypothermia, and I put Cold Snap and Emeritus Scolding on the bottom of the deck, which is perfectly fine, but it's still a good play for us. The Frostbite here, not super relevant. It could be. The Frostbite kind of just gets negated by the Tunic on our own turn if we're looking to play the Aether Icevein here. So this is 4. The idea of playing Blizzard here to deny them the ability to have an arsenal and play the Winter's Bite is a good option for us, but I don't know that it's appealing enough. It's my first thought looking at this hand. We have a pretty good hand. I mean, put the Amulet into play is pretty solid. We can put Amulet into play. Okay, so Drill Shot comes in for 5. I think we're just going to 8 here. My first thought is to go to 8. Because what we get to do is we get to take 5, fall down to 8, and then our turn is activate Tunic, pitching Ice Eternal. We have 3 floating. Play Amulet of Ice, then play the blue Aether Icevein fusing with the Blizzard. And then depending on how they play it out, we can activate the Amulet of Ice if we need to. You can tell that I'm really tanking here. I feel like I'm seeing the best line that this turn has to offer now that I'm rewatching this game. I don't remember what I did, but I don't think that was the line that I took. I think I took a different line, which is this is a good example of like, you know, like talking about how you see different things when you're in the middle of the game versus what you see when you're watching the game. The only thing that could be any different is if they decide to play the Winner's Bite here. I was like, which most players won't, so... The best play is activate Tunic, pitching Ice Eternal, into play Amulet of Ice, into play Aether Icevein fusing. Okay. It looks like that's the play I decided to make. I did not play the Amulet of Ice first. Definitely should have played the Amulet of Ice because it can give us the ability to take another card out of our opponent's hand here. Although I think I decided that I would rather throw the Waning Moon and arsenal the Amulet of Ice, but I think putting the Amulet into play is just good for us because it gives us a lot more control over their next turn and what it looks like. All right, so we Waning Moon them down to 15. We're down 7, so it's not looking great so far. We're gonna arsenal the Amulet here, and then Winner's Bite takes a card. We probably just give up the Frosting if I had to guess. I think I like playing the Amulet before this resolves. I decided not to, but I do think I like doing that before it resolves. Maybe not. It gives them an idea of how their turn's going to play out here. Pitching the Frosting to the Winner's Bite lets us, sets us up so that if we do make it back around a second cycle, we have that Frosting to fuse with our Ice Eternal we just pitched. Okay, they pitched a yellow, which means if I play the Amulet of Ice right now, there's an opportunity that if they have a 1 cost, we do get them here, which is very good for us. We get them in the fact that they can't throw anything at us here. Turns out they have a Searing Shot, which is pretty solid. Searing Shot's looking pretty good right here. We're going to deal 3 to them, put them down to 12. And then I think I take 5 and fall to 3 here. Was not an easy decision to make. But the Aether Icevein, when you pair that with the Aether Hail, could potentially get us into a winning position. Or I'm sorry, I fall down to 2. I forgot about the +1 from Voltaire. The Amulet of Ice, when they don't have an arsenal like this, is a big win for us. Them not having an arsenal really gives us a lot of room to try and push the game here. Since they pitched a blue and a red, we're definitely going to activate Amulet of Ice and just stop them from having a turn. We're going to arsenal the Aether Hail here and set up for a bigger turn. Now, we can pitch the channel the Bleak Expanse to play Aether Hail, and then on our turn, we can play Amulet of Ice, activate Coronet Peak, pitching the Ice Bowl, and then arsenal the Sink Below. That's the first line that comes to my head here. There's a couple of different lines we can take depending on what their turn looks like. We could also play Channel the Bleak Expanse on our turn. I don't know. I don't think that's better at this point. We've already seen 2 3-of-a-kinds, I'm pretty sure. So I don't think that playing Channel the Bleak Expanse on our turn is correct. So Aether Hail forces them to make a decision. And then putting them down to 5 here is a very good play for us. They fall down to 5 and choose to keep an arsenal, which is a massive W. So we activate Coronet Peak, pitching Sink Below and Amulet of Ice. Okay. We're taking cards out of our opponent's hand as opposed to just trying to play the Amulet of Ice when we do not have a fuse card in hand. And I think this was a better play. I think I made a better play in that moment right there. All right. It's Death Touch. So here is where we're kind of waiting for our window to see what they're going to do. The fact that they pitch a yellow is very telling to me that they probably don't have a blue. So they're gonna throw Endless Arrow at us. And then looking at this play, if I block with Fighting Spirit, it actually puts me back to 3, meaning that I can take 2 and go to 1. And then force them to use some resources here, leaving me with 9 resources to be able to play the Ice, Ice Bolt, the Aether Hail, and the Waning Moon. It's exactly 6 resources, which is what I would need from the Frosting and the Channel. Ended up blocking with the Coronet Peak as well. It just makes sense. We're this late in the game. We're not going to get any more value out of it. But it would have worked out to just block with the Fighting Spirit there as well. But we are denying the on-hit. When they play the Rain Razors, they're just dead. Because they have 1 resource here. We're going to play Ice Bolt. And then we're going to activate Waning Moon. And then we're going to activate Stormstriders and play Aether Hail. I made the decision to activate Metacarpus nodes here to let this be for 1 additional point, as opposed to playing the Aether Hail and playing everything out, which definitely would have been a better play there. One of the things that I really enjoy about recording games and then going back and re-recording over them is that it gives me ability to see the game through a different light. Now, sometimes I make better plays in the game that I recorded, and sometimes there are better lines that I could have taken that I catch now. So this is your sign. If you don't record your games and rewatch them to get better, make sure you do that. It'll take you a step above. On the last turn of the game, my opponent throws Endless Arrow at me for 4 with 1 floating and 1 card in hand. I block with Fyendal's Fighting Spirit and my Coronet Peak. From there, my opponent plays Rain Razors, leaving themselves with 1 resource to use AB. Being at 5, there was a better line that I could have taken to kill them. If I would have played Ice Bolt from Arsenal, not using Metacarpus node, I could have pitched a blue to pay for that, pitched another blue to play Waning Moon, which puts me at 6 total arcane damage, and then I could have used the last 2 resources to activate Stormstriders and play Aether Hail, making it 8 damage versus the 7 that I threw. So it didn't really matter at the end of the game, but it is a small misstep, and I could have had 1 more point there. Guys, if you see anything you think I missed, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.